Okay, I believe we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the meeting. We're going to go ahead and jump right into the agenda, if I can find the link. All right, we're going to start out with an update from testing. Dimitri, if you want to start with that, and then we'll get anybody else who wants to chime in, like Martin or others.
Okay, hello everybody. I have started to contribute some new test cases on Create 2, and we are currently discussing how to process this no proof blockchain tests with the other client developers. This is one thing I want to ask from you. Is this last time I introduced um, roadmap for the test cases, and I asked to put some comments with your ideas and test cases. So I would like to ask if it's working or not, because I haven't saw any comments on Google document about that. And then I also would like to tell you that there are many test cases to cover. I would not assume that we could go to the release anytime soon. I would like to make a better test coverage for all of the scenarios that we have with the new opcodes and stuff, because we don't want to end up with some test case uncovered and potentially leading to consensus issue. So Xcode hash and create 2 test cases are already available, and everybody could try it now on test repo. There are pull requests, and I'm going to be merging first part of the test cases soon into Hive as well, so that Hive could pull it from the master branch. I mean.
Okay. So Dimitri, let me make sure I have this correct. So you just talked about making some cases like create two, but also that you're going to need more time to create test cases. So we should maybe adjust the schedule of releasing before
Yeah.
DevCon 2.
Yes.
Okay.
Because it might be that we won't make it until DevCon 2. Because I don't want to rush. That's what my point.
Okay. Yeah. It's looking more and more like it's going to be pushed beyond DevCon.
Mhm.
Um, and we'll hopefully be able to get an idea about when block times are going to reach crazy levels so that we can try to get a hard fork in before that time. So thanks for the update, and we'll adjust the schedule accordingly based on testing and other things. Okay, Martin or anyone else, do you have testing updates?
Yeah, so we're doing some revamp of the fuzz testing stuff, and are currently in the works of deploying and preparing the production environments to run the fuzzers. Yeah, there's some additional bits and pieces to go in, but hopefully we can start pretty soon. That's it.
Okay, great. We're going to run through client updates real quick. Keep it really brief so we can just run through them. We'll start with parity. Fred?
We don't really have any major updates. We've discussed some of the issues from the last call, but I think they're on the agenda for later, so I can bring it up.
Okay, great. Geth, congrats on your release. And do you have any updates?
Thank you. So as for the update, just to really quickly, we did a huge major minor rewrite this week. Basically, we have released basically a lot of fancy features such as mining concurrently on multiple blocks, streaming uncles and transactions while mining is ongoing, push notifications, local account prioritizations, and similar things. A huge shout out to Peter Pratcher, because he was kind of asking and directing us towards the path of preparing this release. He was really helpful. We're kind of really proud of this minor release. Since we released, we did notice one instability and one feature that we missed. So we'll probably push out another release on Monday just to have the whole thing completed as a somehow put a dot on the whole mining release. But I guess that was mostly the highlight of our work in the previous few weeks.
Okay, thank you. Aleph?
I don't believe a lot of has changed for these 2 weeks in terms of Constantinople hard fork. We mostly did some tweaks for EWASM testnet.
Okay. Wonderful. So let me see here. Harmony, Ethereum J.
Hi, nothing special from us. Bug fixes, developer API improvements, and working on Constantinople hard fork implementation.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trinity?
We're one EAP away from having all the Constantinople stuff done, and as of like a week ago, we confirmed that Trinity does now sync the full mainnet and keeps up with the chain, which is pretty cool.
Great. Next we have anyone from Ethereum JS here? All right, what about Pegasus Pantheon?
Hey, Matt from Pegasus here. So we're able to sync through block 4.85 million. That's a full archive sync. We're wrapping up JSON RPC. We're able to mine. But a lot of our time has really been spent on stability at the storage and networking layers, and we have no updates about Constantinople support at this time.
Okay, great, thank you. I don't think Alexi's here for TurboGeth. Is there any clients that I missed?
Yes, it's Igor from Mana.
Yes,
So
Mana, great.
Hi guys, it's my first time here. Just a quick update. So Mana is a new client in Elixir language. So, so we have, it's a new client, so we have, we're not full featured. We're passing 100% of VM tests and all Frontier, Homestead, EAP 150, 158. And now we have 67% of Byzantium test passing. And we expect to have all test passing in 3 weeks.
Awesome.
And we'll start. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick update for Nimbus as well from status.
Wonderful.
All right, cool. So what we've been up to, our EVM is nearing stability. So we've been exploring using it through EVMC, for example, with Geth running the chain, but using our EVM, which is pretty exciting. We're working on light clients, and in parallel to that, we have a track going for the beacon chain. And that's it.
Okay, great. EWASM? Is Lane or anyone else here that can speak to EWASM?
Alex, do you want to do a quick update? Yeah.
I was trying to unlock the mic. Yeah, we just recently had a 2 week long sprint on EWASM. And we have at this moment running the testnet running with Aleph and Geth, though we haven't run them together yet, but independently they're able to run EWASM correctly, and we also have a block explorer for them, and they're able to deploy contracts metered. Our next focus is to work on language support and a toolkit to interact with the WASM contracts.
Okay, thank you. I felt like there was one more. Oh, research. Is anyone here from research? Maybe Danny, who can give an update?
Yeah. Nothing crazy going on in research. A lot of different efforts working on the RNG for the beacon chain, a lot of implementations of the beacon chain. And as we've been doing that, the spec has really been tightening up. and there's an effort going on for a formal analysis and verification of the epochless Casper, which is a modification of FFG that you can see on ETH Research. Otherwise, you can follow lots of little discussions on ETH Research right now.
Okay, thank you. I think that's everyone. We'll move on to agenda item 4, which is Constantinople. We'll go through the EIPs in order. EIP 1014, I have that as EIP 1014 issues, but I'll be honest, I forgot what issues those were. So let me look up from the previous. Is that Skinny Create 2? I believe that's Skinny Create 2. And I think we solved our problems last time. Let's see. Yep.
I think it's mine item. So I just only proposed a change in the naming of the hash function to replace SHA-3 with Kachak 256 for clarity.
Okay, wonderful. That sounds good
So
to me.
you can find a link to pull request somewhere in the comments below the agenda.
I see. Also, it looks like someone from L4 and someone from Spank Chain also replied to the Skinny Create 2. I think Lane reached out to them. Is that right, Lane?
Yep, I did. Reach out to both of those organizations, and they both sort of caught up. The last I heard from the L4 crew was that they're pretty comfortable with the proposed changes. Amin from Spank Chain actually did post some questions, I think, to the EIP that I think he's actually still looking for an answer to. So we should follow up on that.
Okay. Until then, we'll continue on with Skinny Create 2 as is. With obviously the changes from Pavel being taken into consideration because it sounds like a good idea. Okay.
I think the formally the process is like Vitalik has to merge it, and that may never happen. So in case we can get
I'll
an
knock on his
exception.
door.
Okay.
Thanks, Danny. Yeah, if you can get him to do that, that'd be great. Jason, did you have something? Oh, there's just a baby. I love it. Okay, cool. He's muted now. All right. EIP 1218, which is simpler block hash refactoring. We're just gonna drop that because we couldn't find anyone who really wanted to do it. Does anyone want to do it?
No, please don't drop it.
Yeah,
okay, so can you guys hear me?
Yep, can hear you great, Zolt.
Great. So this is something. So I'm sorry that I just dropped in the last minute and tried to save the CIP. I was on a long vacation, but yeah. So this is something that I have been thinking about something like this for a long time, and this would be really useful because I want. I want to do trustless checkpoint syncing with LES, with the Light client, and we already started some planning work with Gary, who's also working on LES now, and yeah, this is something that we are really missing, some way to prove with the realistic resource requirements that a certain old block hash is in the chain. So I have already commented on the EIP. I even proposed a little bit of extension of the EIP, which may be like a long shot, considering that it's almost dropped now. So, but I would really like to defend this thing, and I am also willing to do the implementation work in Get, but obviously, yeah. So other clients would have to agree on this too, but I think every Light client implementation would make good use of this sooner or later.
Okay, Martin, did you have a comment?
No, I was just gonna say that Scholt wanted to champion this.
Oh, okay, sounds good. I felt like we had problems with this before. Can anyone comment on that?
We've looked at this at parity, and it's I think it's a good improvement. Currently, we have all these hard-coded CHC checkpoints, and this change may not be able to remove them entirely, but it
I think Fred cut out. Can anyone hear Fred?
Me neither.
Nope.
Hey, Fred, we can't hear you at all. I don't know if you can hear us.
Brad is on the train. He might be just cut off.
Can you speak, Afri, for the changes at all, or should we just wait for Fred to come back?
I'm sorry, I was sick and I'm still catching up. We have to wait for Fred.
Okay, no problem. It sounds like it's a positive at parity, meaning like they've been implementing it and it seems okay. So that's good.
Okay, to make clear, we are talking about this skinny version of the proposal or the full one?
Yeah, the skinny version, I think. So this is the one where we are only storing a logarithmic number of block hashes. So that's not such a heavy resource requirement, and yeah, it also takes a logarithmic number of steps to prove any odd block hash. So this version.
So that's the skinny version, right?
Yeah,
Frederick is on chat, by the way. He says would help in the combo, but main question is if it's included for Constantinople or not.
Who does anyone not want to include it for Constantinople? Okay, I don't see an issue with including it then, especially if we're going to be shifting the timeline anyway, due to testing. Dimitri, I remember you having some issue with adding it, I think. Am I wrong? Hey, Dimitri, can you hear us from the testing team?
Yeah. You're asking me?
Yeah, I was asking you, did you have any problems with 1218 or anything with block hash refactoring? Because I remember you saying we shouldn't do it at one time.
Yeah, because to write test for this would be like another topic, creating the test specifically for the new block hash algorithms.
Okay, but if in the case that you get more help, because it sounds like there's an effort going on behind the scenes to get more help, would this be something that can be accomplished?
Well, given that this help will also require some time to start working together and like introduce people to how things are done, I wouldn't count that. Like if you introduce new people like a couple of months ago, then yes, but not at this point in time, I guess.
Okay. Interesting.
Because if you introduce new people at this point in time and just starting doing new tests all of a sudden, it will be rushing again, and we have like 3 months before the release.
No longer do we have 3 months before the release necessarily. It can potentially be longer. So if it is longer, would that also
if you
change
have
things?
time, then of course, yes, I'm welcome to have new people working with the test.
Okay, I think we can make time. Worst case scenario, and this is just an idea, so people can comment on this. There's going to be discussions about ProgPow, which is a replacement for proof of work. So if it's like really hard to get the changes bundled for like all of these EIPs bundled for Constantinople, we can have a second hard fork after if we want.
Second, however, this is another issue to discuss, because if we delay the time, we would want to implement more features to this particular Constantinople fork, and we should discuss whether it's good to have many changes in one fork, or it's better to have less changes in many hard forks. I remember there was a discussion about this.
Yes, there was. And I think things have changed because at the time we had that discussion, there weren't that many EIPs, and now there are more EIPs to handle. So I think the discussion is shifting now. Um, does anyone have any idea or comments on that, especially if we add more EIPs having two hard forks? Not necessarily Constantinople 1 and 2, but just Constantinople with the EIPs we have, and then the second one for like 1218 or any of the EIPs that don't get done in time.
I would much prefer to stay on schedule rather than to increase scope and push timelines out, since we can always do subsequent hard forks down the road, unless there is a specific reason to fast track getting something into the hard fork, which I'm not seeing.
Okay. Do we have other comments?
Well, just to support the other side of the spectrum, I think it's kind of important to realize that with Constantinople, I think we wanted to do this Constantinople fork at the beginning of the year. So the fact that we're at the end of the year and we didn't do it yet speaks volumes of how well we organize hard forks. So basically what I want to say is that it's fine to postpone certain features, but we should be aware that if we postpone it, then realistically it won't happen for another year. I mean, we could surprise ourselves, but our track record isn't the release fast.
Peter, are you saying it's better to drop features in order to make the date?
Basically what I'm saying is that it's a fine line. So we can drop features, but anything we drop will probably not get included for a long time.
Then you prioritize.
Yeah, exactly.
At some point you have to ship.
Yeah,
no,
I
agree. I completely agree.
I think that there's a logical fallacy at play there, because by saying things take a long time, and so if we don't include it now, then it'll be a really long time, we're just perpetuating that same thing, which is that it takes us too long to organize hard forks, where I'd much rather focus on getting our process for getting these things out on a tighter timeline down. So potentially pushing these things out is motivation for us to do this on a more realistic and accurate timeline for the subsequent hard fork.
Almost all of our teams operate on continuous integration, so we're always ready to ship. We've got a lot of features that are really quite independent and get rolled into code bases independently, but we insist on acting like a big corporation, rolling out releases with a ton of features all at once, and then being unable to roll it out because we can't get all of the features ready to go at the same time. And I don't know why we have to do it that way, except that we're afraid of making hard forks.
Interesting perspective. I think that it's very possible for us to tighten up the schedule and to have a hard fork that doesn't take a whole year to produce. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, so the problem with the hard forks is not only the implementation. I mean, one of the big problems is that it's difficult to reach agreement about when an EP is finalized, and then there's continued discussion on it, and should we modify it, should we make an alternative one, and there's all this confusion about these specifications. That's really the big time sink when we do hard forks, in my opinion.
I agree. I think we're pretty efficient in other ways. What was that comment? Was it Peter? Okay.
Nope.
Yeah, Peter, did you have a comment?
Nope.
Oh, okay, great.
Would it help setting a date for the next hard fork after this one? as a way to help people gauge decided like the consequence of delaying a particular feature for the next hard fork?
Maybe.
So, yeah, at last DevCon, we sat in a room, a lot of people, and discussed, and came upon the model that maybe we should do hard forks every 8 months or so. And it was kind of generally agreed upon. Didn't really work out though.
I personally think that makes a lot more sense. We should be scheduling hard forks and then putting whatever's ready in them rather than trying to base them on launching them when a feature is ready.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I agree too.
Okay. Well, if we commit to scheduling hard forks, I don't see why we shouldn't drop a few EIPs and then schedule them for the next hard fork. And when I say drop EIPs, only the ones that are like really hard to do testing for or something, like 1218 right now.
So that raises the question of if we push, I don't remember the numbers here, but the block hash and I believe create 2 was going to delay our current Constantinople timeline. If we push both of those into another fork these months out, is it realistic for us to get Constantinople out on the timeline that we've been shooting for right now?
That would be Constantinople with 2 EIPs total, bitwise shifting and EXT code hash.
What happened to net gas metering?
To which one?
Net gas metering.
Oh, yeah, net gas metering's the other one. Sorry, there was a third one.
And the bitwise shifting operations?
Yep, exactly. So 3 total. EIP 145, bitwise shifting, EIP 1052, EXT code hash, and EIP 1283, net gas metering with S-store without dirty maps. So, Dimitri, those 3 EIPs I just named, would it be possible to get the implementation and testing of those complete, in your opinion, before DevCon 4?
The gas metering EIP sounds easy.
And then is bitwise shifting and EXT code hash already done? I think you mentioned they're already done. Or...
No, XT code hash is not yet fully covered. So there is a test roadmap, and I actually insist for you to look at it and maybe put more test cases into the roadmap. And same for bitwise shifting. Thanks, like a lot of thanks to Yoichi, he wrote test coverage for bitwise shifting in the beginning of spring. So we should just should also review this roadmap that he covered and maybe put some more test cases for bitwise shifting.
Okay. We can have more people help with that. If anyone on the call just like that, if they can help with adding some test cases, that would help a lot.
Yeah, but by adding the test cases, I not necessarily mean writing the test case and executing it, just putting the idea what the test case should do, and then I or Jared could write the actual test.
Sounds good. Okay. So, Dimitri, just to repeat my question, if you have any idea, and if you don't, this is okay. But if we use the 3 EIPs I mentioned, bitwise shifting, EXT code hash, and net gas metering without dirty maps, is that something that we can reliably get test for in the next month to then do a month of testing before releasing before DevCon?
Yes. What about Create 2?
That's what I was going to ask.
Create 2, is that something that we can also do before DevCon? It's kind of up to you.
I already started writing tests for Create 2, and as I saw the commit merged in CPP, so I saw it was already accepted the implementation.
Okay. Then that could be on there as well. So that would actually be all of them that we've already decided on. So really the only one we'd be delaying is the one that Zolt was talking about, which is 1218.
The block hash.
The block hash, yes. So 1218 would be delayed, and then if we decide on ProgPow, that would have to be delayed too, because there's no way we're getting that into Constantinople with the timeline we currently have. However, we can do, instead of doing an 8-month timeline, since we've already started on some of these, we can do a 6-month timeline maybe. Anyone have
I
a...
want to push back on that. If we're going to go for an 8-month timeline, let's see what it's like to do an actual 8-month timeline rather than a like short little accelerated one.
Okay.
Even though we only have one thing right now, though there will be other EAPs that show up in the coming months that will probably filter into that.
Okay, that sounds good. All right. So, in that case, what do other people have opinions on an 8-month timeline versus a 6-month timeline? I'm kind of agreeing with Piper now.
I think that's reasonable. I think that should be discussed in the context of pushing the difficulty bomb back. And so if we're shooting for 8-month timelines, does that push us on like a 12-month difficulty bomb to kind of force the hand? And so if you delay the 8, then you have to at least fork by the 12. Is that reasonable rather than like a 16-month or 18-month difficulty bomb?
That sounds reasonable to me. It gives us 50% buffer time to for when things don't go as expected, but still forces us to make an action in a timely manner.
Agree.
Peter, did you have a comment? I saw you unmuted.
Only wanted to say that the reason why I would also really oppose a 6-month timeline is that basically if the fork frequencies are too large and there's too little time in between them, that kind of puts a huge pressure on currently at least on the parity and the geth teams, because not only do we have to do the whole fork stuff, but we actually do also have to maintain the network and to so it takes a ton of effort just to maintain the current network and to keep it running and to do the minor tweaks. So it's for us it's a bit more work currently, and you don't really want to put even more strain on the teams.
So your argument is for the 8-month, is that right?
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Great. Okay, we can.
Even 12 with emergencies wouldn't be bad.
Yeah, I agree.
The date for 8 will keep showing up at different times, and it'll always be, when's the next one? When's the next one? Instead of like, it's July, here's your fork.
Yep, exactly. Okay, I'm comfortable with 8 months.
There will be emergencies. There will be flat out emergencies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, does this also mean that if we drop 1218 from Constantinople, so are we planning a Constantinople 2 that is coming soon, or then does this mean that 1218 will be only released 8 months after Constantinople?
It would be 8 months after Constantinople. Is the current plan.
Please not call it Constantinople 2.
Yeah, no, it's not going to be Constantinople 2. It'll be a whole new name.
Yeah.
The name has to be Istanbul, I think.
I agree.
Yes, please.
Okay, it might be Istanbul. Everyone's going to have to learn how to spell that one too. Okay, let's talk more about this next week. Reason being, we need to get some time in for the issuance reduction chat, but it sounds like people are trending toward an 8-month Constantinople fork. So if you go to the link for the Constantinople progress link in the agenda, that actually defines all of the EAPs that are going to be going into Constantinople, and no other ones are going to be going in. Okay, great. So let's move on.
Other than potentially the issuance reduction EAP.
Yes, and the difficulty bomb.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Yes, potentially those. So that would be something we would need to decide on today because that would also affect testing. Am I right, Dimitri? If we do an issuance reduction, that's going to affect testing pretty greatly.
I mean, if you disable some issues from the Constantinople to be included into Constantinople, I mean.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Less issues, less tests to cover and think about.
Totally. Okay. So let's get into the chat about potential issuance reduction. So what's going on is there are multiple competing EIPs to delay the difficulty bomb and then reduce or maintain the difficulty or the block reward. 858 is to delay the bomb. All of them are to delay the bomb, so that's not up for discussion. That's already been decided last meeting. However, some of the things that are brought up are to reduce the block reward to 1 ETH or ETH per block. That's 858. 1234 is to reduce it to 2 ETH per block. And then 1295 is to keep the reward at 3 ETH, but to change other factors such as the POW incentive structure involving uncles and nephews. So, especially for 1295, that one goes a little bit more in depth because it is not a reduction. If y'all could open that and just kind of browse over the motivation and the abstract, because that'll be a more technical argument. But we'll start with just a quick introduction of the people I've brought on to talk about this stuff. So we'll go alphabetical order, I guess, and just talk just 20-second introduction about who you are and who do you feel you represent, and if you support one EIP over another. So basically, there's people here who are miners, there's people here who are investors, and there's people here who are from the ETH miner or ProgPow community. So we'll start with Andre.
Here I am. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you great.
Yeah, I'm a late developer from the ETH team, ETH miner team, and I'm just digging into the EIP 1218. Sorry, in the 1295, which I found it very interesting from the miners' point of view. I think that anyway, we should speak before those EIPs, which may be the economic implications about a reduction in the reward or a keeping of it. Actually, given the conditions of the market, I don't believe that a reduction of the reward would help anyway the miners, whether they use an algorithm or another, or they use any ASIC compliant devices or whatever. This is my personal opinion. I think I will anyway hear other opinions before adding something else. Sorry for my English, but I'm very tired here. Thank you.
No problem. Brian, you're next.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Venturo. I am the CTO of Atlantic Crypto. We are a large GPU mining organization based in the US. Prior to founding Atlantic Crypto, I ran a systematic fundamental natural gas and electricity hedge fund based in New York. Prior to that, I worked for a large environmental asset manager where we invested in Kyoto Protocol clean development mechanism projects throughout the developing world. I believe net we reduced carbon emissions in the atmosphere by over 100 million tons. I have a deep expertise in energy and nascent commodity markets. Not only do I feel like I'm representing the mining community here, I feel like I'm representing the sophisticated investor community. I clearly support EIP 1295. It is our EIP, and I'm happy to go in an in-depth discussion later on.
Thank you, Brian. Alex Thorne, I guess from Fidelity Labs. All right, Alex might not have his mic his or her mic working. Carl, you can go next.
Yeah, hi. My name is Carl Larson. Thanks for inviting me on, Hudson. So I've been involved in the Ethereum community since the beginning. I started the ETHTrader subreddit and helped moderate that. Prior to that, I was I have been a web developer, and prior to that, I was building wind turbines in Afghanistan. So I authored EIP 858 back in January, and the concern, the justification I had used in the EIP is really to look at the environmental impact that that mining has on behalf of the network, and you know, seeing that we should do what we can to reduce or mitigate that environmental impact. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much. Next we have Eric Connor.
Yeah, hey everyone, this is Oak. Been an investor and part of the community since day one. So I am here representing EIP 1234, or I guess I should say supporting, which is a block reduction to 2, as well as delaying the difficulty bond, because I think currently the network is grossly overpaying for security. So again, thanks for having me, Hudson.
Wonderful. All right. So next, I'm not sure who Hacktar is. Hacktar, could you introduce yourself?
He just left.
Oh, okay. No problem. Same with Jason Temple.
I'm just an observer here. Thank you, though.
Oh, okay, perfect. Marius, are you an observer? Okay. Next we have Matthew Light.
Am I coming through?
Yep, you're coming through great.
Okay. I'm Matthew Light, a software developer, long-time interest in blockchains and Ethereum in particular. I did the initial EIP for the initial issuance reduction from 5 ETH to 3 ETH. And now I'm in support of an additional issuance reduction. The reduction from 3 to 2, I think, feels like the most prudent response to the situation, and that's EIP 1234 by Afri Shuden. So I'm in support, and a number of other investors that I'm in communication are all in support of 1234 issuance reduction to 2 ETH per block.
Okay. Thanks so much, Matthew. And what we got next is Tim Coulter.
Yeah, hi there. Tim Coulter, founder of Truffle. I represent small to medium miners. So I've been mining, started out in my garage when Ethereum started, but now I have about a dozen machines looking at about 100 GPUs. I also have a Bitmain miner. I bought that completely as an experiment, so I have firsthand experience if you guys want to know about that. I'm in favor of a block reward reduction. I don't have a preference to which one. I am most likely going to continue mining either way, purely out of speculation. I think depending on price fluctuation, I might decide to take that money from electricity, turn off the miners, and just buy at the market, depending on the way things go. But beyond that, I have nothing is likely going to stop me from mining. One other piece of context: I'm up here in Washington State. Electricity is cheap. Most of our electricity comes from renewable energy.
Okay, thanks, Tim. And then we have Zen.
Hi, this is Shane. I'm the CEO of Sparkpool, which is one of the largest mining pool in the world currently. we are supporting more than 20% of the hash rate currently of Ethereum. With Sparkpool brand, we control, not we control, but we have about 300K rigs involved, connected to our mining pool every day. My my personal experience, yes, Sparkpool has been 2 years, and before that, Sparkpool is actually originally from Eastfans, which is actually the first and one of the largest Chinese Ethereum developer community. So we did not start with a mining pool. We started the business as a side project at the very beginning. After all, of course, I support with the delay of the ICH difficulty bump, and we prefer EIP 1295 if I have to choose one of the three. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then I have a quote or a statement, I suppose, from Ethermine. Peter from Ethermine, they control 30% of the hash power, and they said the following. We have reached out to our miners, and from their response it is clear that the most important point for them is to include a POW change to obsolescence ASICs. Regarding the block reward, their opinion is somewhat ambivalent. Some prefer an increase, obviously. Some argue for it to remain the same, and a small fraction want it to be reduced. Regarding the difficulty bomb, most argue for a delay and not complete removal. This is also the position of Ethermine, the position Ethermine will take as a proxy for our miners.
Hudson, we also have Alex Thorne here posted a text. It looks like his mic's not working. Did you see that in the chat stream here?
Let me look for it. It's not working. We're ready to take a firm. We aren't ready to take a firm stand on these EIPs, but in general, we favor 1295. Okay, so thanks everybody for the quick intros. We only have about 35 minutes, so we're gonna have to go fast on this.
Can I?
Oh yeah, Gene, did I skip you?
Yeah, you did.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No problem. My name is Jean, by the way, Jean Cyr, ETH miner dev. Full disclosure, I'm neither a holder nor a miner. I'm purely interested in the technology and the development of that technology, and participating in development in general. You know, my test rig generates about 56 cents in profit a day, so clearly my motivation is not financial. You know, given about 10 hours to prepare for this, 8 of those being spent sleeping, I don't have any much factual support for any arguments that I might propose, but generally I favor the third choice, which I believe was what, 1295?
Correct.
Slight reduction on uncles and leaving the rest as it is. My basic feeling about the whole thing is that the long-term viability of ETH is basically predicated on the success of, you know, scaling. That's really the bottom line. This will be the only thing that'll decouple ETH from that other big coin. Yeah, that's about it. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
You also missed Marius, I believe.
I asked about Marius and the mic wasn't working. Is it working now?
Okay, sorry. I don't know. Yeah, sorry. I'm.
No problem. Marius, is your mic working? Okay, if it turns out to be working, we'll get him back in. So there's a good number of people who've been talking about 1295. So I want to get just a really quick couple of minute overview of what 1295 is. Just pretty much just the abstract and any part of the motivation that you want to elaborate on. I believe this is Brian's. Is that right?
That's right. So EIP 1295, the bottom line result under status quo operation of the network is an 11.4% issuance reduction. It addresses the issuance reduction through through a current incentive misalignment, where the mining community, whether they're doing it or not, is currently incentivized to maximize uncle rates. The greater number of uncles the network has, the higher the total issuance, the higher the total Ethereum and US dollar reward. Currently, 14.4% of all Ethereum issuance goes to ancillary rewards like uncles and uncle inclusion rewards. EIP 1295 adjusts the uncle structure to incentivize optimal node configuration and decentralized mining. When I say decentralized mining, what I really mean is that anytime you have a large pool, you're centralizing the delivery of work packages to your miners. And anytime you do that, you're going to increase latency to your miners. It's just the round trip time it takes to get that work package and to deliver a share. That will increase uncle rates. EIP 1295 proposes to reduce uncle rewards by 75% and to only reward the first two levels. We believe this is appropriate because we shouldn't be rewarding subpar infrastructure. It targets a sub 6% inflation rate by Q4 2019. It leaves top line incentives, which is the block reward, in place to minimize security risks to the network as we go forward. Going forward, we have a couple of points here we'd like to make. One, we suggest that we adopt EIP 1295 now. We believe it's in line with Danny Ryan's Casper FFG EIP proposal, and is pretty close to the issuance schedule there for year one. We also believe it potentially provides natural issuance reduction when the nodes are actually going to be optimized to reduce the uncle rate. And we think that rate can get down to 5 to 10%, which is pre-metropolis. We think there are a couple extra steps after this. The second is to commit to a change in the proof of work algorithm, which I believe we're going to talk about later. I think we target a Q1 2019 rollout for that. And the third and most important piece here that we'd like to talk about is after this is done and targeting the hard fork at this time next year, we believe the community really needs to come together to commit to a monetary policy that has a set roadmap for issuance reduction and should be adopted. We initially wrote our EIP to diffuse the difficulty bomb. We'd like to change that position to just delay it so that that is a forced conclusion next year. And that's kind of where we stand. So happy to field any questions or anything you guys want to talk about.
Does anyone have a comment on that, and a particularly technical or more technical / economic, crypto economic comment on what that would do to the network?
Regarding a long-term monetary policy.
Before we do that, can we get a high-level overview of all of these before we go into any depth on any of them?
Ooh, that's a good idea. The author of 858, can you give a quick overview of yours? Is it just reducing it to 1 ETH, and what's the motivation?
Yes. Actually, I made a pull request recently to also include a delay of the difficulty bomb to 12 months. So that's pending a pull request on the master repo. And yes, EIP 858 is to reduce the block reward to 1 ETH per block. It was written in January, and the rationale is just looking at the costs on the network, in particular the environmental costs of the network from mining, and wishing to reduce those, and looking at the reward as the lever to do that.
Okay, thank you. And then Ofri, if you want to go over 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, sure. It's quite similar to 858. I propose to reduce the block reward to 2 Ether and to delay the difficulty bomb by 3 million blocks to around 1.5 years. It's a bit more moderate, and my rationale was basically to try to keep the current proof of work issuance as stable as possible.
Okay, thank you. Now, if we can go back to Danny's comment, because I was interested in his perspective on it.
Oh, there was a mention that we need to have a long-term monetary policy. that's really hard to do without having transitioned to proof of stake yet, because proof of stake radically changes the amount with which we can pay validators in the network compared to the miners. And so from my perspective, a lot of these transition points between now and then are kind of stopgap measures to keep the network healthy, to keep people using the network, to people positive about the network, keep the network secure until we get to that point. And so I don't think we can begin to really talk about long-term monetary policy until we're talking about proof of stake and sharding.
Hey, Danny, it's Brian. So I understand those points. We've got some ideas that we're going to roll out after we get through this fork here of ways to kind of, I'm going to say, introduce monetary policy to deal with those stopgaps. Our main goal here is we don't want to have an unlimited amount of issuance before proof of stake happens, right? Is we believe there should be a hard cap of issuance that goes to the mining community. It's up for debate. It's going to be a long debate. It's kind of why I set a 1-year time frame for that to be rolled out. But I do think that is a very important conversation. And I think that it would be very beneficial to the whole community if we didn't have to do this every 3 months or 6 months and just kind of had that roadmap everyone agreed to. We can talk offline about it. I just hope this is the start of that conversation.
I just want to quickly add one thing to this. So I heard the same comment from some of the ETH miner devs that they would much more prefer to have a hard cap of the supply than manipulating the block reward.
Anyone who hasn't already should read the paper on the instability of Bitcoin without the block reward. It demonstrates that on Bitcoin, if you reduce the block reward below the regular fees, it becomes very cost-effective.
Could you speak up a little bit, Nick?
It becomes very cost-effective for miners to mine alternate chains, and the same results, I believe, will apply to Ethereum. We can't. There's research that shows we can't reduce the block reward below a certain level and expect the current incentives to hold.
Okay. Do we have other comment on any of the EIPs so far?
Hey Hudson. Can I just make a comment about EIP 858, please? So my career started as an environmental investor, and the group of partners that I have at Atlantic Crypto, they did the first emission reduction transactions in the world in the early 90s. I believe that the reduction in emissions from reducing from 3 to 1 would be, on an absolute basis, probably 0. The hardware is going to run. It's going to continue running on other networks. The incentives to build new hardware may not be there, but those incentives aren't there right now. So when we look at the emission kind of impact of the Ethereum network, it's about 4.2 million tons a year. The Ethereum network can be powered by 1 combined cycle natural gas plant in America. And you look at all the large miners, everyone wants to find renewable energy resources as fast as they possibly can because it is the cheapest, most available power. The environmental implications of the current network versus Bitcoin are, I would almost argue, de minimis. Just wanted to make that point.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to someone else. Oh, go ahead, Peter.
I just wanted to nitpick a bit with this argument. I don't think it's a good strategy to say that well, since Bitcoin does it, we can also do it, or Bitcoin does it worse, so nobody cares about Ether. So if we can, for example, reduce emissions or whatnot, I don't think we necessarily need to just do it because everyone else is doing it. So that's I don't really accept that line of thinking.
Okay. Yeah,
Hudson,
that's kind of. Oh, go ahead, Carl.
Sorry, my mic was muted. I just wanted to respond to a few of the things that were just talked about. In terms of the miners leaving and going to other networks, I would ask to look at, by my calculation, Ethereum is roughly 65% of GPU mining. It sort of, the market cap of Ethereum dwarfs the combined market cap of other GPU mineable coins. So, maybe some, some miners would go to other coins, but you would expect that if the demand that that the Ethereum network is sort of asking for this mining, if we remove that, then it's going to remove it from the wider pool, the sort of total pool of miners. So I would expect some mining, definitely expect some mining to drop off totally. So and the electrical the electrical consumption that you can attribute to that mining, you would also expect to be removed. And to the point regarding using renewable energies, I don't buy that renewable energy is always used to power miners. And even if it was the case, then actually the miners are consuming electrical power that could be diverted to other uses, which are now probably being burning fossil fuels to provide the electricity for. So, yeah, thanks.
Arguing about the origin of the energy used to mine and the ecological impact seems like an inherent. We're designing a protocol. We should try and we need to set it up so that it is robust and secure as a protocol. And that should be a consideration in the core devs call.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if we should argue about where the energy's going. Is that kind of your point, Nick?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, if we can reduce the miner incentive without impacting security, we should do so regardless of whether it's good or bad energy-wise. And likewise, if we can't, then we can't, regardless of whether it's good or bad energy-wise.
Yeah, so Nick, that's kind of the approach I took. I think my blog post got put in the chat here a few minutes ago, but essentially, when I was taking a look at EIP 1234, which is a reduction from 3 to 2, I took an approach where I thought the participants of certain networks should be willing to pay for security based on the value of that network. So I took Bitcoin as a kind of a benchmark for that versus Ethereum, level set the market caps, and then looked at what Ethereum is currently paying out in miner rewards. And if you look at that, Ethereum is currently paying out a factor of 2.5 times higher. So if you drop that block reward down from 3 to 2, those actually start to come in line. So that was kind of my argument for 1, 2, 3, 4 is more around, hey, can we drop the reward and still keep the network secure? The energy side of things.
Greg, could you mute, please?
I have to run. I just want to say 2 seems like a reasonable compromise to me, and an investigation and maybe somewhat of a commitment to try to do ProgPow in 8 months also seems like a reasonable compromise. I have to go. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye, Danny.
Bye, Danny.
Hudson, just to respond to Danny's comment there, I think that going from 3 to 2 is going to do a couple things to hardware composition on the network. The community seems to have presented a pretty strong mandate that it would like the proof of work algorithm to be shifted from the current ASIC, I'm going to call it friendly, to a less friendly algorithm like programmatic proof of work. Reducing from 3 to 2 as that happens is basically going to force the GPU miners off of the network, and the only thing that's going to be kind of left behind is the ASIC community. I don't think that the community wants to do that. I drafted P1295 with that in mind, is that we'd like to keep the top line incentives in place to continue allowing that composition to exist as it currently does. And I mean, it's going to get worse over time here before that happens. A lot of these things have already been produced and purchased. But if our goal is to remove the ASIC participation from the network, let's not do the opposite. I'm all for an issuance reduction when we understand what the ASIC implications or the ASIC participation in the network was, which may be the middle of next year or the end of next year. as part of my idea behind the monetary policy roadmap. But I think that right now, without putting security of the network at risk and the composition of the network at risk, reducing to 2 is probably the wrong move. I believe that 1295 makes a technological advance in changing the incentive structure for miners and mining pools, while also reducing issuance by a pretty sizable amount. If you go from 3 to 2 and you don't change uncle rewards, or you go from 3 to 2, the network is going to be incentivized to have the highest uncle rate possible. Right? Issuance will be higher than what we expect it to be. I believe that our EIP solves a lot of these problems. And like Danny said before, a lot of this stuff is a stopgap. I think that ours is a great next step stopgap as we move forward.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Carl. Ask the question first, real quick.
Yeah, just in case somebody who can talk a bit more to the ASICs that kind of are running around. I mean, my impression was that the Antminer E3, the running efficiency is about on par with current GPUs, and and the A10 is not even released yet. So do people have data on the A10? Because it claims that it's going to have sort of a 2x improved running efficiency over a GPU.
Yeah, let's have Tim go first. Tim, what was your perspective?
I don't have obviously I don't have an A10 or have any data on the A10. I do have an E3. What I've noticed is, so my GPU rigs are all 8 GPUs each. The rough cost given all the pieces that we have to put together is about $2,500. The price for the E3 when I bought it was in the first round, which was $800, but it's still around 2,000. So there's a smaller, a cheaper cost. The efficiency after you tweak the GPU rigs to work the way that they should, the efficiency is roughly about the same, especially if you get the right GPUs that you can overclock. So you're getting about the same hash rate out of it. Now, the thing that for me, the only difference, like if we reduce it to 2 or even 1, like maybe I'm a special case of miner or something, I'm going to continue mining with these GPU rigs. However, the thing that the E3 machine has over a GPU rig is that the GPU rig has 47 different moving parts. And so management of those of that hardware is much harder than just plugging in the E3 machine and letting it go. So I don't know if for me the argument whether or not you're going to shut the GPU miners out, I'm not sure I believe that argument. However, the only benefit that the E3 one has is mostly management and how much time it takes from it.
Hey guys, this is Brian again. So the early information on the A10 is that the top of the line model there is going to be able to do 453 mega hash at 850 watts, which is about let's call it 3 times as efficient as a GPU rig. We've got a couple GPU rigs. We've got probably 3,000 of them. So we have a pretty good understanding where the economics lie here. I'd like to talk about the hardware types themselves. Our hardware has a number of alternative use cases going forward, right? This hardware is going to be usable for all types of new things in this kind of AI economy. It's going to be usable for machine learning, artificial intelligence, and those use cases are just beginning to show up, and they are projects on the Ethereum network. There are folks who are looking at this hardware and saying, that's a resource I can use. A network of ASICs, when this network does go to proof of stake, they're not usable, right? So incentivizing or allowing the build of a network of ASICs, I mean, it seems to me like you're leaving nothing except for waste behind. We made the choice when we started this business that we did not want to invest in ASIC mining in Ethereum and look at ASIC mining in Ethereum because of the flexibility of the GPU. We still believe that. I just thought it was a good point to kind of raise.
Sure.
Can I wanted to, can I make a further point?
Real quick.
Go ahead then. Go ahead. Come back to me.
I was going to have Shan give their perspective from the Spark Pool perspective on some of these issues, if you have any.
Sure. There are two major points I want to say. At least at the China angle. First is about the environmental. I think it's too ideal to think that get the GPU miners out or cut the hash rate will help with the environmental problem. Because at least from my understanding, all the Chinese miners are using non-renewable energy. However, those energy are all wasted otherwise. Because all the energy are produced no matter what. It's not because of the mining, it's because of the electricity plant is already there. It will never stop. However, the Chinese miner happen to use the mining business to use the wasted energy. So, which I don't think cutting the issuance will help with the environmental problem, at least not in China. Second, I want to point out is it's more about, it's from my personal perspective, but it's more about network security level. I posted a link before in the chat about the crypto51.app, which is a website that help you to calculate how much it costs to actually do a 51 attack to the network. For Ethereum, it's not that much. However, why there's no one attacking Ethereum network? I think from my perspective or our study as a pool team is there isn't any hash rate you can use existing in the market to attack Ethereum network. So like there are a lot of math people doing on the internet about what if we cut the issuance, how much hash rate will go out. However, at least to me, it's not like if you are going to cut 3 to 2, then only 1/3 of a hash rate will go out, or maybe will cut the Ethereum network security to 2/3. It's more like army. Now we have 100 soldiers, and that's all the soldiers we have in the world. But if we cut 40 of them out, then it's not about if they have enough, if the enemy or the bad people have enough soldiers to attack us. Because before they have 0, now they have 40. They have the chance. They have once they have the capital, they can always have the choice to hire those soldiers or those hash rate to attack the network. So my major point is Ethereum network has been secured or safe to now. It's not because of attacking Ethereum costs too much. It's simply because of now all the hash rates are on Ethereum network, and no one has extra hash rate to attack it. And even though you have enough money, it's not gonna happen. That's my two major points so far.
Okay, so some of the things I'm hearing. Oh, actually, Carl, you still had a point to go first.
Yeah, well, the point I wanted to make was that going forward, I think we can sort of concern ourselves with the current hash rate and the current miners and their running efficiency, and to in order to we don't need additional. Do we need additional hash rate? Like, are we talking about kind of wanting to continue to grow the hash rate? Is that desirable? In my mind, that's absolutely not desirable. And in that case, looking at the kind of the equipment cost, actually we want to be discouraging that equipment, that investment in new equipment, and one way to do that is to lower the block reward, and that so worsens the economic argument for that investment.
Can I make a quick point on that?
Sure.
I don't understand the rationale for building either ASIC or GPU mining rigs at this point. My calculation on the E3 is that it would take roughly 2 years to pay for itself unless something extraordinary happens to the valuation. Am I getting this right?
For me, John, all mining is completely speculative at this point.
Yeah, it's kind of tied to the price to an extent.
Well, I suppose you're right. Yeah, but even at say 5x the price, it's still hard to make an argument for it. But anyway, just my thoughts.
I can add something about why people are making ethics. Is in China, and so yeah. Essentially, if you read rather a study from Sia Coin, they actually post a very specific or comprehensive article about why ASIC miners exist and how the ASIC manufacturers making money. Essentially, the ASIC manufacturers they are not responsible uh, to the miner once the miner bought their rigs. All their profit and the costs will be paid off right after people made the pre buy or whatever. So essentially, all the money will be they will collect all the capital and all the profits before the miners start mining. Before the ASIC start mining. So of course they uh, have the incentives to manufacture because the future of the mining does not really affect to them because once it's produced, once it's designed or not designed but manufactured, it will be sold out, and then this mission is finished at least for them.
But we're not talking about the manufacturer incentives. We're talking about miner incentives. The people that actually purchase that gear. Why would they?
There's been no incentive for me to continue to invest. I bought all this hardware a while ago with the full knowledge that proof of stake is going to come, and I'm ready to shut it down. So if people are continuing to invest in mining, I completely agree that we should de-incentivize that.
But I
Yeah,
think
I'd like to.
Yeah,
I'd like to
Matthew?
talk a little bit about. Okay, I'd like to talk a little bit about sort of our background um, of why we think a reduction is appropriate. We did a reduction from 5 to 3. I think probably most everyone involved with Ethereum would agree that reduced issuance. So we reduced the amount we were paying for security, and we did not have a negative effect. I think a moderate reduction from 3 to 2 would have the same effect, not impact security significantly, but we would reduce the billions of dollars a year that we're paying for mining, proof of work mining, which is not where Ethereum really wants to be anyway. We've had a significant setbacks and delays in moving to proof of stake. I was looking at a thread from mid 2017 where Vitalik said he expected the likelihood was that we would have proof of stake by the end of 2017. Now we're talking that we're hoping it's going to be in 2019. I'm certainly hoping that as well, but getting the issuance under control to a level that's comparable with the other major blockchains in the space will have good effects for price, which is important for paying developers salaries and projects, funding new projects. It'll also reduce at the margin. It'll reduce the incentive to put more, buy more mining equipment, more hash power, more electricity. We're currently way overpaying the miners based on, we're basically talking about 7%, 7.5% per year of the market cap of Ethereum is being paid to miners. That's too much. Bitcoin is paying a lot less. This is a competitive marketplace for crypto. In a bear market like we're in now, a lot of that, especially from the big miners, from Bitmain, et cetera, almost all of that is going straight to the exchanges and getting dumped. And that has a negative effect on everyone's ability to keep working in this space over a long period of time. So we don't want to be radically overpaying for something that we're trying to get away from anyway.
Yeah, so we don't have a lot of time left. So what I wanted to do was this. I have, from talking to certain amounts of miners, I've seen that there is a greater need, in their opinion, for a switch to a different proof of work algorithm in order to make ASICs less profitable or not profitable at all. So, miners in the room, one by one, if you could just give me a short yes or no about is it, or basically a short statement, if moving to something such as ProgPow I think it's called progressive proof of work. It's a change to ET hash or F hash that would make mining with ASICs less profitable or not profitable at all. So basically, could there be a compromise where there is an issuance reduction, but also a switch to something like ProgPow in the next 8 months or 10 months, actually? Is that something that would be agreeable? We'll start with Brian. What would you think on that?
So I'm in favor of an issuance reduction paired with a change to the program to the proof of work algorithm. The caveat with that is that I believe that 1295 is a great stopgap before that proof of work change happens. If the community would like to go from make an additional reduction at that time, I'm in favor of an additional reduction when the proof of work change happens. We just don't understand the extent of the ASIC participation at the moment. So I think that a good compromise, in my view, would be 1295 today, proof of work change at some later date, along with an incremental reduction in the block reward.
Okay, Shing.
Yes, I'm in favor of anti-ASIC for sure, and I still have to point out one very important thing in my perspective is network security. So in general, all the talks we had today is nice to have, but network security is not linear. We cannot just use simple math to calculate. There is a tipping point. Once we reach that tipping point, everything will break down and instantly. And once it happens, we can never move back to the talk anymore. That's one thing I really want to make, no matter what.
Yeah, so it sounds like, are ASICs a bigger threat, or is an issuance reduction a bigger threat to that security, in your opinion?
In my opinion, the change of issuance will be a big impact to the security, because no one can simply calculate what's going to happen in the future with math.
Okay.
Well, we can look historically. We can look historically at what's happened in 2017. You know, we dropped from 5 to 3, and you know, there was hardly a blip in hash rate.
Yes,
the valuation was much different at that time.
Actually,
Yes.
throughout 2017, the valuation was largely what it is now.
Really?
Yeah, the you know, that was January when things, you know, shot up beyond kind of the 300 level. I can post a link to a chart that has both the hash rate and the issuance, but the issuance converted into the ETH value in dollar terms.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Jason, did you have a comment?
Yeah, it was more in 2017. There was, at least to my knowledge, not that widely deployed ASIC usage. So reducing the issuance reward really just kind of was an even playing field for all. Whereas, you know, doing it now, only the strongest, i.e., most profitable miners, i.e., ASICs, would survive.
But ASICs don't have at the moment. Nobody's demonstrated that ASICs have a running cost, a significant running cost. In fact, any running cost efficiency improvement over GPUs. So, how can you assume that there's that they don't, you know, taking over the
right? From what I heard, Carl, is that they're on par with more of the top of the line rigs, GPU rigs that are out there now. But for those of us who have legacy, you know, systems going back, you know, a year plus, they're significantly more efficient than them.
And you have to think about the future ASICs that are going to be much more efficient. The ones that, like, we would be bricking in about 10 months.
I have to question that assertion because, I mean, the ETH algorithm remains memory bound, and there's no magic in ASIC. I mean, I worked for most of my career in a semiconductor company. The real issue with ETH is the memory bandwidth issue, and it all goes with the memory technology, not the underlying ASIC. I mean, GPUs are ASICs once you get down to it.
Yeah, so was ProgPow, have you explored ProgPow, and is that something that would be a solution, or not really?
ProgPow tries, well, it does a couple of things. I think it reduces the DAG size, and it tries to exploit more of the circuitry that exists on current GPUs. So, making it more difficult for an ASIC to reproduce, nevertheless possible. And also, if you think about it, the shortest time you can deliver an ASIC is about 3 months. It's a development cycle, a 3 months cycle with the fab. That's not a long time. I don't think it would take the ASIC guys much time to catch up with that. And secondly, I'm concerned with the introduction of a new algorithm in that what I've seen of ProgPow is that it's unoptimized at this point. So we're basically getting into this kind of arms race with the miners, see who can out-hash who, and various private and public implementations. I'm very much in favor of open source. It's the great equalizer. So I tend to favor leaving things as they are. That's about it.
Okay. Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm also somewhat skeptical of ProgPow insofar as, I have some hardware experience, but I'm not fundamentally a hardware engineer. But looking at the list of randomly selected operations it does, many of these are simple bitwise operations which don't require many gates. A couple of them are shifts, which actually require 0 gates, and only a couple of them require anything sophisticated like a 32-bit multiplier. So I'm skeptical it would pose a significant barrier to ASIC implementations.
I agree, Nick.
Yeah, I'm also skeptical.
Yeah.
One thing I would also like to add with prop proof of work is that currently, so there was I'm not entirely sure. I think Brian mentioned that that, for example, changing the ETH issuance would change the hardware distribution or hardware buildup of the network. But I'm kind of arguing that we probably need to take a closer look at prop proof of work from the same perspective, because currently, so miners don't just blindly buy all the GPUs they can get. They probably benchmark them and probably selected those that had the highest memory bandwidth and reached the highest hash rates. Now, when you are actually changing the proof of work algorithm, it means that certain GPUs that were insanely powerful beforehand might be insanely suboptimal because maybe they have an insane memory bandwidth, but they have a crappy computational unit. And basically, my point is that it kind of seems it seems a bit naive to say that if we switch from ETH to prop proof of work, then all of a sudden miners with GPUs will be happy, because I'm quite certain some of them will not get happy from the results. So that's probably something that would also need to be investigated in detail.
Yeah, I think we should also look into the new developments with like this GTX 2080 and stuff like this. This is just coming out, so maybe we should wait for benchmarks on this so that we can evaluate the changes that we make before we start making them.
Interesting. Okay, so we're pretty much out of time. We'll probably go on a few more minutes, but what I was wanting to get some suggestions on from everybody here. Does anyone think there's an optimal way to figure out sentiment and to make a decision on this?
The eternal question.
Yeah, exactly. If anyone has any ideas, throw them out there. I didn't really think anyone would have a great idea. Oh, Greg?
A useful straw poll is yes, no, and over my dead body.
So you're talking about rough consensus there?
You can handle no's. Over my dead bodies, you've got to try to avoid.
Yeah, who of the mining pools or miners here would leave if we did an issuance reduction?
Not I.
Not I.
So if you, it depends on the reduction, Hudson.
Okay.
If you go to 1, we're probably, we've got really low power prices and we're probably not economic at 1.
Yep.
At 2, we're going to explore every alternative use case we possibly can without a shift in proof of work algorithm.
Yeah, my not I vote was in line with what Brian just said, going from 3 to 2.
So, and would this also be dependent on the price of Ether, though?
Absolutely, right? We're just talking about this moment in time. I think that the part of the reason why we laid out our path to go kind of 1295 today and then an additional reduction if we change the proof of work algorithm as a stopgap for that, right? It minimizes the security risks during that time. And it still gets everybody kind of where it seems like consensus is going in the medium term. That's our opinion.
All right, Andre?
I just wanted to introduce a point I didn't catch from the other participants. The very simple question is it worth the effort? I mean, is proof of stake coming? Okay, it's a mixed proof of stake, partially balanced by proof of work. But if we leave the ASICs to enter freely in this, in the security of the network, and we let the small miners get out due to costs, due to increased or decreased efficiency of their GPUs, we will have a network which will be in the hands of the ASICs. Not a problem per se, but it will be very difficult to keep or change in the next steps the proof of work algorithm. Because if you do that, all the ASICs will be unavailable for a quick change in every aspect of the algorithm. So you might end with a very insecure network.
Well, I think it's very debatable to say that miners will drop off with a reduction, especially the two. I mean, any studies I've looked at, inflation 7.5%. We're overpaying for network security by a factor 2.5 to Bitcoin. You know, we should have. It was generally consensus that we'd end up around 100 million total supply and slowly rise up about 1% from there. We're already at 107. And hash rate tripled since the last reduction. So I'm not.
Okay. Sheng, do you have an opinion on where the breaking point would be as far as Sparkpool's mining operation would go? If you all have one that you've thought about.
From my understanding and my perspective, I don't think ASIC currently is the major problem for the tipping point of breaking the network security, but the issuance will definitely be one of them. Because of course, I believe all the other pools, as long as there is profit, they will of course support Ethereum, no matter what. However, currently I think the top 5 pools has more than 70% or something like that of the total hash rate. However, once the issuance changed, I don't think the pools will still have that much power or weight to support anymore, because once the issuance changed, the miners will leave the pool to do something else. But once those hash power go to the market, anyone with enough capital will have the money to purchase the power and tax the network. It's simple as that. So still, my point is the network security power, the problem is not a linear one. You cannot just calculate with math.
Okay, understood. Do we have any other final comments? I honestly don't know how to make a decision on this, so we don't really know where we'll go from here.
I have some. Maybe we should just wait and evaluate how this new proof of work works, and maybe look into this a bit more, and then come back and then make a decision.
Yeah, so the problem with that is that we kind of need to make a decision for the Constantinople hard fork, and properly analyze it probably take a lot.
Yeah, we're on a time crunch there, so this isn't something that can be decided. I don't even know if we can wait 2 weeks on this. What do you think, Dimitri? Oh, he's gone. Never mind. Yeah, I don't. What do you say, Martin?
Yeah, I would like to propose that as we draw nearer to an actual hard fork, that we have more regular meetings, and perhaps have that every other week we have a technical meeting and discuss the test cases, implementation, where we're at, potential details that need to be hammered out in the EAPs, and then every other week we have, I don't know, more general talks like we're having now, high level talks.
Okay, so you're saying that we should have a meeting in a week?
Yes, I guess that's what I'm saying.
I'd be
To
down for
discuss
that.
the EAPs in detail, in technical detail, and fix all those quirks that we don't really have time to talk about on these calls.
I would second that. That gives us a week now that we've heard everybody's cases and motivations to dig into the EAPs, read them again in that context, and then we can talk about it again next Friday and make a call.
Okay. I think that's a good idea. There isn't really any other ideas out there, so I think that's what we're going to end up doing. So we'll have another meeting in a week of the core devs, and we may or may not have some of the guests from today on. We likely won't, just because it's going to be a rehashing of the same arguments. So between now and next Friday, there's going to be a lot more community comment on places like Reddit and Twitter and the Fellowship of Ethereum Magicians forum, probably, about the EIPs and about the different perspectives here. I want to thank everybody for coming in and giving their perspective. I think it's great to hear all these different voices from different stakeholders, and I think we got some stuff accomplished today, just hearing some in-person conversation over the different viewpoints. So we will see the core devs in a week for a meeting to discuss some of the EIPs in more detail and hammer out some details. And thanks everybody for attending. We'll talk to you all in a week. Thanks everybody.
Thanks. Thank you everybody.
Thank you.
Awesome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye. Bye.
Okay. Bye bye, guys.